But I also wanted to touch a little bit on the underlying philosophy and concept of the symposium. I heard Professor Flett earlier described a social entrepreneur is directed toward the adoption of a mission that will create social value. Well, Ed Snider is the top entrepreneur in Philadelphia for the last 50 years when it comes to sports and entertainment. And what brought him to found the Ed Snider Youth Hockey Foundation was the NHL lockout in 2004-2005. The story is that he actually was with the office of the chair. The decision was to cancel the season, but he had over the years in his head the creation of a foundation to provide opportunities to kids who otherwise wouldn't have those to play the game of ice hockey. And so that was the beginnings. In May of 2005, I came along as the lucky person to help start the foundation as its first staff member, but literally supported by hundreds of people that work for Comcast Spectacor, that work for Global Spectrum, more directly the Philadelphia Flyers, and all of the resources that come with that. We have grown since May of 2005. Now we have, I manage and lead a group of 12 full-time employees. I'm responsible to a president, to a board of directors, and obviously to Mr. Snider himself, because he's still passionately and personally involved with all the operations. One of the things that I picked up on earlier in the conference that drives us, and it is really a response to the cynical approach of, well, how many tickets do I have to buy, is that everything that you do when it comes in sport, in professional sport, whether it's an individual team or a league like the National Hockey League, is that you're taking a balance of the short-term revenue from ticket sales and sponsorship and the long-term value that comes from being a member of the community, doing the right thing for the community, being a valued partner in the community. And there is always a balance in everything that we do. Historically, sport reflects the culture and civilization that sponsors it. Going back to the ancient Greeks, the Olympics, the events that were hosted reflected the areas that culture and civilization championed. Whether it was throwing a javelin, whether it was running a race, whether it was heaving a stone, all of those events came from the things that culture championed. And through the years, that's continued as not just sport as a diversion, as a recreation, but also as an area to champion the character, the life skills, the values that particular civilization held high. The more recent example is the YMCAs and the YWCAs were supported in the early 1900s by the business leaders of that time because of the intent to provide socially accepted diversion, recreation, to maintain a social situation for the workers of the Industrial Revolution. Now, in the National Hockey League, it can go by many terms. It could be community relations, fan development, cause marketing. Now, the Ed Snider Youth Hockey Foundation is a separate individual, nonprofit 501c3 organization. We are affiliated and we leverage the resources of the Philadelphia Flyers, but technically and legally we are a separate organization. So they have their responsibilities to the stakeholders, to the office of the chair, the stockholders. We also have a responsibility to our board of directors, which is to respond to our mission. We started in October 2005. We had 30 kids on the ice at the class of 23 in the University of Pennsylvania and maintained a school program for the first 18 months to 2 years in which we developed the relationship with the Philadelphia School District and provided recreation and physical fitness activities to kids during the school day, with the understanding that if the kids enjoyed it, they would be allowed to continue in the sport. All of this at no cost to the school district or to the individual children. The concept that what has grown out of what we have done has become our mission, to build lives and unite communities. We provide the opportunities free of charge. Right now, by the end of this school year, we will have 1,500 kids participating in no cost after school at 5 rinks that are owned by the City of Philadelphia, but at which we have contracts to provide programming for the next 20 years or so, and 6 other private rinks in Philadelphia and in the Philadelphia area. We provide the full scope of athletic development, from beginners to travel teams to kids, kids who otherwise would never have adopted ice hockey as an activity. Now, the reason that it has been developed goes back to the initial mission, the initial feeling of Mr. Snider, was to provide opportunities to kids in the sport that he loved, and that sport provided him so many opportunities as it grew within the City of Philadelphia. So children are exposed through that same sport, ice hockey, to the values and character development opportunities that our culture champions. Things like respect, teamwork, effort. We go over these on a regular basis. We have developed and utilized a life skills program, full academic and educational programs. So we technically can't be called a hockey organization because we're trying to develop the whole child. Children are required to provide us their report cards in order to play, which was a very unique, to some of them, a very unique situation. Why is the coach asking me for his report card? It was a way for us to tie it together. A little bit about my background, Philadelphia native. I grew up in Philadelphia, involved in sports at grade school, high school, college, Scholar Athlete Award along the way, a couple of other full scholarship to college based on a combination of both my academic and my athletic accomplishments. Then I moved on to the real life, to another world, to a career, spent 25 years doing that, but had coached and at fairly high levels along the way. When I retired in 2003, and this is the commercial shout out to Newman University, I went back and got a master's degree in sport management at Newman during the last year of my old career and the beginning of this career, and was able to pick up a master's degree 30 years after I got my bachelor's degree, and that was a challenge at times. Because at the same time, we were developing and growing the Ed Snider Youth Hockey Foundation. That first year, we went from one full-time staffer, a handful of volunteers, and a total of 500 kids over about a 14-week period, to right now, we have 12 full-time hockey ops coaches. We have 125 academic assistants, coaches. We have another 10 to 15 interns, a host of volunteers, all supporting the activities of 1,500 kids after school. Over an entire year, with all of our activities within the school day, we help develop kids, about 3,000 kids a year, both in Philadelphia and in the school district at Camden. One of the things that we do constantly is leverage, stay connected, and it's part of us being good partners in the community, a member of the community. These are some of the other partners and stakeholders. Again, I will speak from a logistical standpoint. People say, well, how do you manage growth? Where do you get your kids? We operate with a couple of different, pretty straightforward philosophies. Don't reinvent the wheel, and it ain't rocket science. So, using those two things as a basis, where do kids hang out during the day? Well, they go to school. Well, that's where you go. You go where the kids are to help recruit. You go to a school, you find a champion. There is someone in that school. It can be either a principal, it can be a vice principal, it could be a 5th grade teacher who are always on the lookout for more resources to provide to the kids and the opportunities. And you find that champion, that helps develop. It gives you instant credibility. It helps give you that entryway to start discussing. You know, in Philadelphia, I talked earlier about the balance between short-term revenue and long-term value. We were always faced, when you start to introduce yourself to a new partner, they would say invariably, how many tickets do I have to buy? There was always that cynical edge to it. Well, what's the deal? What do I have to give up in order to get all these great things? As if you were a used car salesman coming in, and I don't mean to disparage used car salesmen if there are any in the audience. But the point was, they were always looking for an edge. And what did they have to? They did not recognize that this was a charity established by Mr. Snider that he personally and passionately is involved with, and it's part of his long-term legacy. It's the only thing that he has actually put his name on, and it is a piece that he takes personal pride in, and in fact, he puts his money where his mouth is. Every donation that is made, if private donations come in, he matches 2 for 1. So that no matter where we get the money from an annual campaign or from a charter campaign, Mr. Snider matches that donation 2 for 1, which is the maximum he's allowed to under the law. So we do a lot of great things, and it comes back to staying with the mission. We're not a hockey program, although we teach ice hockey, and we do it very well. This year, we had a total of 11 teams in mainstream youth hockey. So if you can imagine going to kids in Philadelphia who had never been on skates before and providing them with the physical and hockey skill development opportunities and bringing them up to speed so they can engage in competition against mainstream youth hockey, that's a tremendous advance. But at the same time, we're trying to produce great kids and trying to produce environments where they can thrive and go forward and become responsible citizens in the community. So we're always focused on doing the right thing by the children, by the participants, and by extension to the families, by extension to the neighborhoods and the schools. Because in all of the environments that we operate in, resources are tight. Our first entry to the school was because we could offer physical education resources that those schools didn't have, and they needed simply to meet state requirements, and we were able to provide those. Once they saw that as we talked to the kids, as we coached the kids, as we developed a relationship with the children, and were able to superimpose the values over everything that we did, that became the selling point to the real caretakers of the children, to the moms, to the dads, to the grandmothers, to the aunts. That opened up the idea that, hey, these people are doing the right thing and doing it for the right reasons. Earlier I heard a description about the issue with resources. And again, I'll throw out a cynical response or cynical descriptor: no money, no mission. We're very clear that that's an issue and that you have to do the right thing, and you have to communicate that to the people who are going to be able to donate. And so that is always an important step for a developing organization, to recognize it's not one or the other. It has to be both at the same time. Now, you can have the greatest program possible and develop the opportunities for the kids in a great spectrum of environments. But if you don't communicate that to your potential donors or your potential stakeholders, you're not going to have the money to complete your mission. At the same time, resources are tight, money is tight, donors have a lot of choices, and so that if you are not seeking them out and explaining it to them with solid evidence-based statistics, evidence-based outcomes, then pretty soon it's a marketing ploy. It's not necessary. People are looking for, what are you actually doing? and we've had great success with that. We've been tracking as part of the report cards, and the report card collection started actually very simply. I coached at a prep school for 9 years at Holy Ghost Prep in Bucks County, and it was easy for me as a coach because they took over the complete academic side of it. I did not have to worry about a student receiving a failing grade or a D and have to keep track of that. They let me know if this kid was in danger of failing. They had an academic support system set up. Well, we needed to invent that for our program. And a couple of kids were trash talking one another at a rink, talking about how one of the things we teach our coaches, every day when you greet a child, you say, "How was school today?" You open up the discussion to make sure that they understand that what happened in school is critical to their development and what happens in their community and their neighborhood. And the simple first step has to be communication. So you ask the question, how was school today? What's going on? What was hard? What was easy? What did you like? And a couple of kids were trash talking about how they get better grades. And I finally, as the old guy who was exasperated at the trash talk, and said, "Bring in your report cards." A typical thing I would have done to my own children. "Stop it. Give me some evidence." They both brought their report cards in, and I realized we were onto something. That became a selling point, collection of report cards. It gives us evidence, hard evidence as to what they're going through, and we make it a matter of pride. This doesn't look like a classroom, but there's a discussion with our staff and kids talking about life skills, about values, getting together. This was moments before one of the Philadelphia Flyers came to visit with them. We try and target and focus our efforts for the appropriate age of the child. Now, the last 9 years of my direct coaching experience, I was dealing with high school boys. Now, I knew how to do that. Having raised 3 boys and a daughter, from here on will be known as the princess, we understood what was necessary and how I needed to deal with high school age boys. It's been a long time since I was in the business of interacting with 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds. And so we came up with a series of approaches. Again, the communication is the same, but the techniques are different. These kids had little handouts that they had to complete. They were completing those to get through, to light those little light bulbs over their head on the issue of respect. And there might be a coloring page, but it opens up the communication with the child. We put kids into situations that otherwise they'd never have an access to. For those of you who don't know, Bill Clement is an accomplished broadcaster for NBC, at the Olympics, locally for Comcast Sportsnet, for Flyers broadcasts. And if you can barely see it, but on his right hand there is a fairly big piece of jewelry from being part of the Philadelphia Flyers Stanley Cup winning teams. Kids who otherwise in Philadelphia would never have access to people like that, and we champion them. So they see people who have accomplished things in life. We have access, Peter Lavalette, Flyers players like Danny Briere, Keenemo Timonen are on our board of directors. Wayne Simmons has come out and made appearances to the children. It's important that they see that. It's also important for them to bring them outside those 3 blocks between their home and school. Most children don't understand, at least in Philadelphia, in the city, and in Camden, their experience level is very, very small. They know how to get from home to school, and that's it. And sometimes it's a deadly environment. And so they're not paying a lot of attention to what's going on around. They're trying to stay safe as they make that transit. We're able to help through connecting with the leveraging with the Philadelphia Flyers, with Global Spectrum, with Comcast Spectacor, with the Wells Fargo Center, and many other, dozens of other local partners to provide those opportunities to kids to get them to see the larger world. A couple of years ago, we took kids, another story, we took kids up to Keith Primo, former captain of the Philadelphia Flyers, is a native of Oshawa, Ontario, Canada. And we were able to take 40 kids on a bus up to Oshawa. We made a big trip of it. One year, we stopped at West Point, received a presentation from the commandant of the West Point cadets. Another time, we went a different direction. We stopped at Niagara Falls, in Toronto at the Hockey Hall of Fame. But the point of this story is that at the very beginning of the trip, we had a beautiful academy, and that wasn't a commercial, but we do like them, a charter bus at the Wells Fargo Center. We met the kids. Mr. Snider was there. The kids got on the bus, lots of waves, TV cameras, smiling, and off we go. We are about 45 minutes from the Wells Fargo Center. We're still on the Pennsylvania extension of the Northeast Turnpike, not even hitting Allentown yet. And the kids look over, a couple of kids looked over to their left and saw some small rolling green. And it actually was probably just a hump. And the kid turned to me and said, "Mr. Britt, are those the Rocky Mountains?" They had no concept or perspective. Now, to me, I'm standing in the bus thinking, we're not even at Allentown yet. What do you mean Rocky Mountain? I'm thinking a whole different scenario. And then it struck me, that's the only perspective they have. They don't know what, geographically, where they are or what's in front of them. We use that, again, as a teaching moment, as a learning opportunity. We start talking about things along the way. And we build that sort of value into everything that we do. Another example with the National Hockey League. They sponsor a weekend, a skills weekend, and we were able to take a couple of kids each year up to Buffalo and some other locations and meet Willie O'Ree, who was the first black player in the National Hockey League back in 1958. And it gets them a chance to meet professional players and talk to them and make them human. Instead of being pixels on a TV screen, they're able to see these people up close and personal and develop a communication and relationship. And it's life-changing. A couple of things that I want to point out in the longer, I'm not sure where we are with time. If you have not picked up one of these, please feel free to. They're out at the registration table. And very quickly, what's inside them are a fact sheet about the Ed Snider Youth Hockey Foundation, where we are, what we're doing. There are a couple of sheets on that give examples about other charitable issues with the Philadelphia Flyers. The Philadelphia Flyers have an event called the Flyers Wives Carnival, and they have since the late 70s. It's the largest effort by any NHL team and probably by any pro sport, fan-based, in which all of the money is donated to a charitable organization. They have it every year. This year, I believe there were 10,000 people who came down to the Wells Fargo Center to have fun and interact with the players. There's a description and fact sheet about that. That has driven networking and connections with the Barry Ashby Cancer Fund, with other medical things, and it's just a great effort. There's also Comcast Spectacor Charities, a newsletter about that. There's also a fact sheet about, from a larger stage, from the National Hockey League. The National Hockey League sponsors a program called Hockey is for Everyone. And I mentioned earlier cause marketing. It's included in their marketing and department. But it's an effort to support programs like ours throughout North America with the resources, with the expertise, so that they can provide the values and connection to kids who otherwise wouldn't be able to play. Pleased to say that when someone calls the National Hockey League to ask about starting a program, the NHL tells them to call us. We are the largest program of this type in North America and probably the world. Most smaller programs, either for economically disadvantaged kids, for diversity programs, for programs for disabled participants, they tend to be less than 100 kids at a shot per organization. We've advanced from those early days to now 12 to 15. We did 1,200 last year. We expect to do 1,500 this year, routinely at rinks throughout the area for at least 3 days a week. Most of them show up 5 and 6 days a week. And the last example that I want to give you about the entrepreneurship and the investment in the community is a project that we're just finishing up. About 4 years ago, we were utilizing rinks with the City of Philadelphia. They had 5 playground rinks. They had 5 playgrounds that had seasonal ice rinks. They were open from the last day, from the Friday after Thanksgiving until the last day of February. They were built in the late 70s and early 80s to provide ice skating for citizens in Philadelphia as part of the follow-up to the Flyers Stanley Cup wins. However, because of the finances, the budgetary restrictions, and the expertise, they had fallen into disrepair. We had known about them. We had known that they were assets that were out there that were being underutilized. In fact, in 2007, the one place that we went in formally and started a partnership, they only had 12 kids involved in programs. I won't name the exact location because I don't want to embarrass the neighborhood. But they only had 12 kids involved. We turned that around. Mr. Snider, as part of his personal involvement, came out on a February morning to Kensington, to the Scanlon Recreation Center at Jay and Tioga, a pretty tough neighborhood. And he saw the condition of the rink. He was there and was thrilled by the passion, the excitement of the parents. He told me it was the first time he ever heard someone cheering ice hockey in Spanish. And the place was going crazy because they were involved with the kids and the kids were having such a good time. But in his experience, he looked around and said, maybe we need to invest some money in these rinks. And hence came a very unique public-private partnership in which the Ed Snider Youth Hockey Foundation invested $6.5 million to be matched by $6.5 million from the state and another $1 million from the City of Philadelphia. And we refurbished 4 of those rinks and turned them into year-round facilities. So then instead of being open 12 to 14 weeks a year, they're now closed for about 6 weeks during the summer for maintenance, but otherwise are open year-round. And that's where we have 250 kids every weekend, every weekday afternoon participating at these beautiful rinks. We caught the attention of the national media. The NHL Commissioner, Gary Bettman, came down for the ribbon cutting at the Lars Sims Skate House in West Philadelphia. Wayne Simmons and the ESPN broadcast people came to the ribbon cutting at Simon's, which is in Mount Airy, and which they made part of their, I said ESPN, HBO. I'll probably be shot by somebody because of that. The HBO 24/7 series highlighted Wayne Simmons' visit and involvement at the Mount Airy neighborhood rink. It's been an incredibly rich experience for me personally and for everyone involved, and it's driven by the vision of Ed Snider. Driven by the vision of probably the top entrepreneur in Philadelphia in sports and entertainment in the last 50 years, as part of his legacy to give back to the kids in Philadelphia and Camden. If you're interested, I would encourage you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, because if a guy like me can learn how to tweet, I think you should be following me, or at least following the Snider Hockey. I have my own personal thing. I don't encourage you to follow that. I encourage you to follow Snider Hockey on Twitter. And you get a richer experience about what we do on a regular basis on the Facebook page, because we have a lot of different things. We make kids heroes. We champion them. Their accomplishments are tremendous. They're responding tremendously. We're having good outcomes. And again, I apologize because the statistic will overwhelm you. One of the things we're most proud of, in a city in Philadelphia, the statistic a few years ago was that about 44% of the boys entering 9th grade graduated on time from high school. 44%. We're able to have our grade-to-grade matriculation rate is over 98%. So the kids who are coming are finding an enthusiastic activity. We're marrying it We're connecting it directly to their behavior, to their accomplishments in school. If they have challenges, we provide support for those challenges, and we provide a rich environment for them to enjoy and develop into responsible citizens. So again, I thank Eastern University Access Sports for inviting us to participate. If you have any questions, I will be available at the break. Final commercial, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you.